Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Living on the Verge. Okay, today is a full Friday episode. We're doing a little reality TV, a little life update. We'll have our Winos on the Verge segment. It's kind of one of those everything episodes that Friday is becoming, which honestly very much feels on brand for how life has been shaking out lately. Because some weeks aren't just one thing, right? They're a mix of what you're watching, what you're doing, where you're going, who you're seeing, how you're feeling. And so today, that is very much the kind of episode we are going to get ourselves into. So let's get started. And I want to start off talking about a little bit of reality TV. I started watching this show on Netflix called Age of Attraction. And it's hosted by Nick Viall and his wife, Natalie. And I want to go over the cast. I mean, the premise basically is couples with significant age gaps. And so what happens is they all show up to a retreat. I believe there's about 40 of them, and they're face to face and they're able to mingle with one another and sort of speed date. But the one rule is that they cannot discuss their age. And at one point, once you make a connection, you go into a room and you basically make a commitment to date just the one person. And it's at that point where the age difference, if there is one, will be revealed. And so there were a few couples that made the commitment and went in and had the age reveal. And I just want to give you their names and go over the cast. So we had Teresa and John. And Teresa was older, 27 years older than John. And then we had Pfeiffer and Derek. And Derek was 20 years older than Pfeiffer. We had Libby and Andrew. Andrew was 16 years older than Libby. And Chris and Leah. Leah was 15 years older than Chris. Then there was Logan and Vanessa. And Vanessa was 20 years older than Logan. And then there was Vanel and Jorge. And Jorge was 33 years older than Vanel. So we talked a little bit about the premise, which is just couples with significant age gaps. But what was interesting is that I found myself watching it differently than I would have even 10 years ago. And the other thing that I realized is there a double standard? In a couple of these pairings, the woman was actually significantly older than the man. The largest age gap was 27 years, and that was with Teresa and John. And honestly, part of their issue was she was hung up on how society would accept their age difference and how her children, who, by the way, her oldest son was 2 years older than John, would accept their age difference. And if you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. I'm not going to ruin what happens and who ends up together. But at the end of, after the commitment, they move in together. And then at the end of a certain time period, they have to come together and have what they're calling a commitment ceremony, where they decide whether or not they're going to keep this promise to one another to continue to date. And so it's only 8 episodes. I think it's a cool and quick weekend watch if you're into that sort of thing. But it really explores the ideas of double standards and ageism and just ideas that society has ingrained on us. And maybe now we're fighting back a little. Like, is it different depending on whether it's a man or a woman? And it got me to thinking about the idea of what used to feel normal versus what feels different now. Because the thing is, when you're younger, sometimes an age gap can feel really exciting. That seemed to be the case with Libby and Andrew. Libby was actually 16 years younger than Andrew. And one of the things that attracted her to him was the fact that he had children. Therefore, unlike the guys that she must have dated in the past, he understood the responsibility of everyday life. And that was kind of something that she found exciting and aspirational, even. But as you get older, you start to see what comes with that, which is kind of what happened with Teresa. And you realize that it's not just about attraction in so much as that it's about alignment. And so I think that's the shift, because life experience matters more than we realize. When two people are in very different stages of life, even if the attraction is very real, the friction can be very real too, right? Because you have different priorities or different responsibilities, different life experiences, or different energy levels, and even different expectations. And that leads into this thought that I just kind of keep having. Is it actually attraction? Or is it lifestyle and energy? Because sometimes what looks like attraction is really someone that might represent freedom to you, or maybe someone that represents that time in your youth that you're just not quite ready to let go. Or maybe it's the representation of stability or the lifestyle that you're drawn to and that you've always dreamt of. And those are very, very different things than true compatibility. So I didn't really spoil anything here for you. And like I said, if you're after a quick, easy weekend watch, then this is something you can actually get through. And what I did like is that there's not a lot of conflict and drama. It's kind of straightforward, and it really kind of reads as an experiment. So if that's something you're into, go for it, guys. But it's so interesting to me how the same situation can feel completely different depending on where you are in life. And speaking of where I am in life right now, it's time for This Week on the Verge, where it's just real life around here and I'm just sharing it as it comes. And boy, has this week been full. Here are some of the things I did. I'm going to share. We went with a group of girlfriends out to Palm Desert, which honestly, it's just about an hour and a half drive, but it just feels like a reset every time, kind of like a daycation. And this time we had lunch at Tommy Bahama. We did a little shopping. And you know what I noticed? Shopping with friends at this stage of life is so different. First of all, we had the best, most cohesive shopping group. You know how sometimes you go shopping and you're just standing there waiting for that friend who's taking forever, obsessing over whether I get the red or the pink. Or maybe it's the complete opposite. You have the friend that's just sitting there doing the and looking at their watch, and you just like to quietly peruse. This group had symmetry. We just understood each other's vibe. If one person was shopping, the other person just kind of fell back and enjoyed. And it was just a lovely day. But what was so different about the stage is that we're not just buying things. I remember going shopping with my girlfriends back in high school and even as a young adult, where at different stages there were different purposes, but it was really kind of just almost a buying frenzy. What can I get? Let's go. Let's find. And life has led us to become so much more intentional. I noticed this with my group in that everybody kind of had an idea of what they were looking for. And even if we saw something that wasn't kind of what we had in mind, we were a little bit more thoughtful before just pulling the trigger and throwing it in the, bag or handing it to the sales lady or even trying it on. And that was another thing. If we tried something on and it looked good, but it didn't feel good, it was a pass, because we don't really have to do that anymore. We're kind of editing. We're trying things on. We're going, is this actually me now? And also, we all discovered that we have one thing in common, and that's the joy of a good gift with purchase. That never gets old, right? And let's be honest, it actually works. It had each of us buying an extra few dollars of things here or there so that we could qualify for the little trinket and all walk away happily, bubbly and giggly because we got that cute little box that we all got to bring home and it was free. Everything about the day was lovely. The food, the drinks, the company, even the drive there was uneventful, and it was just a lovely day. I really just look forward to those kinds of moments. And then I got to spend time with Ezra, and there's just something about being the grandparent who gets to sit and just hold the baby and cuddle and watch all the different expressions all day. Like, I don't have to rush. I don't have to multitask. I just get to be there. And honestly, I really felt like a VIP in those moments. Like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. And I had such a beautiful afternoon, but it also made me think about something. We all get so focused on the baby that sometimes we forget about the mom. And postpartum is real. As a mom of 4 boys, I can attest to it. Thankfully, not for my daughter-in-law so far, but I think sometimes the most supportive thing you can do is not just say, how's the baby? But also say, how are you doing? Even if they're okay. Because the transition at that time in your life, it's huge. It is a big change no matter how ready you think you might be for it. And this is just something I want to say gently and say it out loud, not as an expert, but just as someone who's paying attention. Look out for the signs because there are very simple and easy to find recognizable shifts. And there are 4 of them. I'm going to share them with you here really quickly. Number 1, withdrawal or pulling back. Is the new mom not wanting to engage, or is she quieter than usual, or not really like herself socially? If someone who is normally engaged starts pulling back, it's something to notice. Number 2, emotional flatness or overwhelm. Either not reacting much at all or crying and maybe more anxious than expected. It's not always sadness. Sometimes it's just a shift, and it can be a subtle shift. Either everything feels like too much or nothing feels like much at all. Number 3, guilt or feeling like they're not doing enough. Even when they clearly are. I mean, there is no harder job than being a new mom. But another symptom or another little sign would be questioning themselves constantly. And a lot of it truly does show up as guilt. Like they're somehow not getting it right. And we know they are. They're making beautiful strides in motherhood, and we're just so proud of them, but somehow they don't see that in themselves. And number 4 is exhaustion that feels deeper than just the normal new mom tired. And this one's a hard one, especially for first-time moms because they don't have a basis of comparison. But it's not just lack of sleep, it's complete emotional depletion. And just watch for it because there's a difference between being tired and being depleted. So honestly, if you're around a new mom, don't just ask about the baby. Ask her how she's doing, but really mean it and really listen and really watch. And if something feels off, you don't have to fix it. just stay close. And of course, if it feels serious or it's ongoing, there's real support out there. This isn't something anyone has to handle alone. We all just get so focused on the baby. And I get it. I was too. But I saw a commercial for a medication for postpartum depression, and it reminded me to check in with my daughter in love. And it made me realize it's so important to check in on mom too. And not in a quick, hey, you good? But really ask, really listen. And the biggest thing is, you don't have to fix it. Just don't overlook her. Don't forget about mom in the middle of all of it. And so I also had lunch with mom for her birthday. I mentioned in the last podcast, it was my mom's birthday, and we were going to, I was going to bring her over and I was going to make dinner for her. And I just thought, I'm going to just try my luck. I was heading back from running errands and I was really hungry because I hadn't eaten. And I thought, I wonder if she would do lunch instead of dinner. And I wonder if I could actually get her out of the house. And I called her and I happened to catch her at the right time because she was hungry and she agreed to literally go to a restaurant and have lunch. And this was really special and a big deal because she hasn't really gone out to eat or anywhere really, except for over my house on the holidays for a little while in a long time, in maybe a couple of years now. And it was just so cool. I picked her up. She was ready. We went and had a really simple Chinese food lunch. Her favorite is shrimp chop suey, egg flour soup, and fried rice. Simple, right? But the time, priceless and precious. And I had this moment right in the middle of lunch while it was all happening where I realized this is important. This is a special moment. This is one of those moments that you don't get back. And so we talked and we had a long, kind of drawn out, relaxing lunch, and we chatted about old times a bit. And then I asked her if she would let me interview her for the podcast because, well, with her dementia, I just want to capture her stories while I still can. And she agreed, and that made me very, very happy. And as we're having lunch, there was something else I noticed. People with dementia don't react emotionally to things like we expect them to. Like, for example, news that would normally bring sadness or strong emotion. And so let me tell you a little story. I was telling her about a friend of hers who had recently passed away, and we hadn't had a chance to talk about it. And so when we started talking about it, I realized, they were kind of close friends for a good chunk of time. And I expected her to be very emotional. And she wasn't. And it made me wonder if it's because the emotional connection to memory shifts, or if it's something neurological and related to the disease. And so I did a little more digging, and here's what I found. What actually happens with dementia and emotions is, number one, the emotions don't disappear, but they change. And honestly, this was kind of a comforting truth for me. People with dementia still feel emotions deeply, even when their memory is gone. In fact, they feel joy, sadness, love, fear. They may not remember why they feel something, but the feeling itself is still very real. What's wild is the emotion can stay even when the memory doesn't. Number two, they may not react the way we expect. And so I started wondering why. Well, research shows emotional responses can become muted or flat. It's something called the blunted effect, Or you may have recognized the opposite: overreactions, huge emotions to small things, irritability, sudden mood shifts. So when you see no reaction to sad news or a flat response, it's not necessarily lack of feeling. It may be that they are having difficulty processing the information or difficulty expressing the emotion that they are feeling. So it's not always that the emotion isn't there. Sometimes it just can't come out the way we expect. And the third thing that I found was the brain's emotional plus memory connection. It gets disrupted. And this is exactly what I was noticing when I was telling my mom the story about her friend. So in dementia, memory centers like the hippocampus are damaged. And we all know that this happens as the disease progresses. And the emotional centers like the amygdala can still be functioning. So what happens is they may be feeling something, but they're not able to actually connect it to a memory or context. And examples from studies show that someone can feel sad, but not remember why. In other words, the feeling can be there, but the story behind the feeling is gone. And I think that's what happened with my mom, because truly, my mom was one of the most empathic people that I've ever met. I mean, to the point where we used to kind of scold her a little bit because she would become heavily invested and teary-eyed about news stories about people she didn't even know sometimes. And so the shift for me was kind of a little bit shocking. And obviously, that's why I wanted to dig in. And number 4 is they can also lose their ability, to interpret emotions. So the next layer is people with dementia often struggle to read other people's emotions. They lose that ability to pick up on facial expressions and tones and subtle cues. They're just a little harder for them to interpret. And so they may not react appropriately because they're not fully understanding the situation. It's not just expression. Sometimes it's interpretation as well. And number 5, expression versus feelings are not the same thing. Someone can feel deeply but show very little because their emotional pathways may be impaired due to their disease, even if the emotional internal feeling still exists. Just because you don't see the emotion doesn't mean it's not happening. And like I was saying, my mom was always an empath, and it was really hard for me to see the switch. But now she has little reaction to things that would normally feel emotional. And that fits perfectly with what research shows: reduced expression, disrupted processing, preserved but disconnected emotion. And my big takeaway, other than thank God she came out to lunch with me today, is it just makes you realize how important it is to be gentle in those moments, because feelings can outlast memory. And I had a lot of other special moments throughout the course of the week by way of fantastic dinners with friends. And what I'm learning is with some relationships, the more time you spend, the more you want to spend time. Right? Over the last week, it's been Mexican dinner, winery dinner, prime rib dinner, and just those nights that are impromptu and fun and relaxing and just good for the soul. And next week, I'm going to tell you all about the spring menu tasting that we're going to with friends. I'm really excited about it. But I also noticed something. When life gets full in a really good way, The regular stuff gets left behind. As I'm sitting here talking to you, the laundry, the cleaning, all those pesky responsibilities, all the real life things, they're still sitting there. And suddenly I'm like, oh yeah, right. I still live here. I still have stuff to do. And this kind of ties into what's been happening with my health and wellness routine. Because it all started, if you'll remember, when my hip started bothering me. And then the rain became an issue. And then we got those 100+ degree days. And then I finally got back to the gym and I was doing heavier weights and I was getting somewhat consistent, which I actually am really loving. But instead of just getting up and doing it, I found myself trying to rush through everything else in life so I could go out and play with my friends. And that's when I realized how easy it is to fall out of rhythm, because one miswalk becomes a week. And then it becomes so easy to just start justifying it. Well, it's okay. I'm going to get all of my steps this week in Palm Desert when I go on my girls' trip with my friends. Or I've been busy and suddenly, poof, it's gone. Your consistency, your routine, out the window. And I told you I'd be honest with you about my health and wellness journey. So here it is. Remember, I told you I had gained a little bit of weight and it was about 6 pounds. Well, I'm down a bit now. And I've got like 2 pounds to go back to where I was when all of this started. But I also had this moment where I thought, you know what? I think I've been fighting the same 10 pounds off and on for over a year. And maybe I just got tired. Like, I'm not going to beat myself up in this session. I'm just going to be honest with you guys because I'm still, for the most part, eating very well. I still eat whole foods and I'm, not eating a bunch of junk food or going crazy. But yeah, I had the baked potato with the prime rib instead of double vegetables this week. And I had the chips and the salsa at the Mexican restaurant. And I ordered the fruity cocktail on our girls' trip when everybody, including me, knows I don't really care for fruity cocktails. And so, yes, I did end up sending it back and getting my standard old drink, but that's besides the point. And so I thought, maybe I just want to live a little too. And also, some part of me does not like the idea of rules and limits at this stage in life. I think I'm subtly kind of balking at it. And I'm choosing instead to serve me, to make me happy, to go out and play with my friends if I want. But here's where all of this shifted. A friend of mine is on her own journey and mostly is using intermittent fasting and whole foods and kind of low carb. And it's working for her. But like me, she struggles to stay motivated. And I think it's for the same reason, because like I said, we just want to go out and play with our friends these days. And so we found a way to kind of combine the two and support each other along the way. And one of the things that we both realized was we will show up for each other in ways that we won't always show up for ourselves. And that's interesting because there's something about not wanting to let someone else down. And that it overrides the resistance that we feel internally, right? So she said, I'll walk with you. And I said, I'll go to the gym with you. And now we have this shared rhythm. And it was really kind of a cool moment because we get to spend the time together and yet we don't have to feel guilty about the things that we're not doing. And I started thinking, again, because I'm me, is there science behind this? And ta-da, there actually is. It's called social accountability. And what is social accountability? Well, it's simply this. It's when you're more likely to follow through on something because someone else is involved, aware, or doing it with you. And that simply means you show up more consistently because it's not just about you anymore. And there are some cool things about social accountability, and this is kind of how we got to where we got with my friend. It increases follow through. It reduces decision fatigue. There's that term again. And it creates positive reinforcement. So no, it's not just peer pressure. It's actually how we're wired scientifically. And it made me realize sometimes it's not about more discipline, but it could be as simple as just not doing it alone. So I'll keep you posted as the health and wellness journey continues, but that was my update for now. So now I'm going to make a quick shift into real time and real life because I'm getting ready to host a party again. We have Easter coming up, a birthday, and a brand new Catholic in the family. It's a whole thing. And I told you a little bit about it, but it's such an exciting event for us in just the best way. But, as the day's getting closer, I was starting to feel some pressure. Will I get it all done? Will the house, be up to snuff? Is there anything I'm forgetting? And then I just caught myself. And I said, Virginia, hosting doesn't have to mean stress. And so I just want to share my thought process, and maybe it'll save you a little bit of stress. If you're hosting this Easter, here's a few things that may help. Prep what you can ahead of time. Don't try to make everything from scratch. Let's normalize potluck again. And honestly, simplify where you can. We're having everyone bring a few plastic eggs for the Easter egg hunt to take some of the pressure off. And a couple of years ago, I made one simple switch on how I handle Easter. And so now instead of Easter baskets, I do Easter bags. Same feel, way less chaos. And the kids feel like it's more mysterious. And bonus, none of that plastic grass all over the place. And with regards to spring cleaning and getting everything ready for said Easter party, you guys, I'm not doing a deep clean. I'm doing a reset. And so I want to share with you the 5 simple and realistic tips to get ready to host this spring. If you're going to have a party for Easter or maybe, for any other occasion, it's getting to be that time of year. So here they are, and they're pretty simple. Number 1, clean what people see, not everything. I've stopped trying to clean the whole house. I clean what people actually see. The kitchen counters, the main living space, the guest bathroom. You can skip everything else. Nobody's going to go in your laundry room. Tip number 2, clear surfaces equal instant clean. If you do nothing else, clear off your surfaces, your counters, your coffee tables, that table by the entry. This alone will make your house feel clean. Tip number 3, reset the kitchen before the event. The biggest mistake and the hardest way to manage and host a party is by starting off with a messy kitchen. So make sure you empty the dishwasher, take out the trash, clear out the sink, and that'll give you the space you need to actually host. And then you don't have to worry about doing that throughout the course of the actual event. Tip number 4, prep one thing ahead. Don't try to cook everything the day of. I always try to make at least one thing ahead, even if it's just all of the prep and all of the chopping or setting something up. So some examples might be pre-chopping your vegetables or making all of your sauces and dressings, or maybe you're going to make your dessert ahead of time. Anything like that. Tip number 5, this is my favorite one. Lower the bar. I've really lowered the bar on what hosting means. I used to put so much pressure on myself. And at one point I realized, I'm a pretty good host and people have a nice time, though they wouldn't keep coming back. So why am I being so hard on myself? Not everything has to be homemade, although for me, that one's a tough one. But not everything has to be perfect. Not everything has to be perfect. People care more about your vibe and the time spent, not really the details. And so for me, I think the goal now is just focus on what matters. The people, the time spent, make it feel good. Don't try to make it feel perfect. So I hope that helps with your spring prep and your Easter. And now it's time for Winos on the Verge, my quick, honest take on where we went, what we drank, and whether I'd go back. This time we went to Doffo Winery, of course, in the Temecula Valley, and we were treated fantastically by Howard, who was our pourer. The vibe there, completely different than your typical Temecula winery. It's got this motorcycle, vintage, kind of edgy feel. It's a little museum with a bunch of beautiful, cool bikes. And one of the cool things that I learned is on one of the walls, all of the bikes are original parts and pretty much roadworthy. The whole place is just really personality driven. It had more of a buzz, but let me tell you something. Howard was no exception. We just got lovely treatment. We got olive oil and vinegar. They have a delicious olive oil and a wonderful balsamic with one of the tastings. We had a fabulous chimichurri with another of the tastings. And we got a chocolate with our final tasting. And all are available for sale. But the tastings were anywhere from $32 to $59. And we did the Rosso tasting, which was $38. So, standouts? This was surprising for me. For me, the standout was the Paulina Sparkling. I don't even drink sparkling, but this had a really nice, crisp, fresh, and not sweet flavor to it. I liked it so much that I bought a bottle. It was $44 for the bottle, but it was lovely and something that really quite surprised me. One of the best I've tasted in the Valley so far. Another standout for me was the 2022 Malbec, $72 a bottle, but it was a solid glass of wine with just a gorgeous color and a lovely, lovely finish. My choice, this is surprising for me too, for a pass was the Reserve Cab. It just wasn't my favorite, but I like a cab. So the lesson for me was not all wines are created equally. And I'm sure that if anybody drinks wine on the regular, you already know this, but every now and then I'm reminded of that. The crowd was lively. It was casual, cool. Would I go back? Yes. I can't wait, actually. And they have this brunch spot that we're going to be going to next time. Now, as far as their wine club, would I join it? Well, like I told you before, I'm going to complete all of my research before I join that third winery that is going to complete the tritium of wine clubs for me. But Moto offers two different wines. And here's the Moto Doffo Heritage Club details. Their first one has 2 bottles per shipment, and you get a bunch of other things like 15% off on non-library wines and 10% off on logo merch. And you get 4 tastings or glasses per month. And then they have their Legacy Club, which is 4 bottles per shipment. And you get a little bit better of a discount, and you get 10 plus tastings and glasses or glasses per month. And neither of them have a membership fee. And so who knows? That may be one of the ones that I end up joining. Doffo Winery earned a 4 out of 5 on the Winos rating scale. Thank you, Doffo. And that's this week's Winos on the Verge. Whew. You guys, I'm tired. I'm out of breath. It's funny, really, how a week can hold all of this. What we're watching, what we're thinking about, where we're going, and how we're feeling. And somewhere in there, you just keep trying to show up for your actual life, one day at a time. And that's it. Until next time, I'll be right here, living on the verge. Have a fantastic weekend.